And now I'm going to introduce our fabulous presenter tonight. Nomy Lamm is a musician, illustrator, voice teacher, creative coach, and Kohenet Hebrew priestess. Nomy is the creative director of Sins Invalid, a disability justice-based performance project, and sings cosmic power ballads for the rise of matriarchy in a band called The Beauty. Nomy teaches online sacred fragments voice classes and creates ritual tools for embodied Jewish feminist practice, including the Olam Haba 5781 Hebrew calendar with Rebecca Erev and the Omer Oracle Haggadah with Taya Shir. They live on beautiful land of the historic Ste-Chas village of the Squaxin Island tribe on the tip of the Salish Sea in so-called Olympia, Washington, with their partner Lisa and their animal companions, Dandelion, Mama, Calendula, and Hanukkah. You can learn more about Nomy at nomyteaches.com. I am so thrilled to pass the mic to my teacher and one of the most inspirational musicians of my lifetime, Nomy Lamm.
Hello, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much, Shamira. Um, to bring us into the space together, I want to sing together. And so I'm going to put the lyrics in the chat. It should be familiar to most of you. It's kind of a mashup between Taya Shir's Hine Matov and then like a more traditional Hine Matov. And so the lyrics are in the chat, and I'm also going to share my screen for a moment while we sing. You see that? Okay. And I encourage you to sing along in your own space. And even if you don't want to sing what I'm singing and just make up your own part or hum along, I think just like feeling the vibration of your voice would be nice. Behold how good this is. 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 Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achot gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achot gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yadadai, 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 yadadai. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Da 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 da. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Ya da da ya da 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 da. Behold how good this is. 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 Thank you so much. It was really great to see y'all singing along. The image that I shared, I'll give a visual description in case there are people that couldn't see it. It's all 500,000 Jews, or AKA every Jew that ever lived, which is way more than 500,000, um, all gathered to receive revelation with their hands in the air. Um, and the mountain is turned upside down and hanging over the top of them. It's a line drawing that I did that is part of the Olam Haba calendar. It's the 5780, it's from the 5781 calendar, and we're currently working on the 5782. And I'm just going to put the website in the chat so you have access to it. It's dreamingtheworldtocome.com. So, my name's Nomy. I'm a Kohenet Hebrew priestess. I use she or they pronouns, and I like them equally. Um, Shamira, I keep letting people in, but you'll watch that, right? Sorry. Um, my my priestess title is Shomer Hasegulot V'Shivrei HaKodesh, which is keeper of treasures and tender of sacred fragments. Um, and I really love singing with people, and I feel like that's one of the ways that sacred fragments become more alive and then get to connect more with each other. And one of the things that's been really cool during this Omer period has I've been taking a class with Victoria Hanna, which some of you may be familiar with her. And she's been really empowering us to explore the letters and vowel sounds and the energies of them. And so that has merged with the Omer counting that I've been doing. So I'm going to bring some of that into this experience with you all tonight. The other thing is I want to share with you this Omer Oracle project that I've been working on for a couple years. It's a collaboration with Taya. Um, and yeah, let's see, I'm jumping ahead of myself a little bit. So I always like to give a visual description of myself for accessibility reasons. So I'm a fat, white, Jewish, non-binary femme person. I have short brown kind of curly hair that's like up in the back. I'm wearing like a dress with thin straps, and I have tattoos, and I've got this like tapestry behind me that has these interlocking orbs kind of shapes. And actually, I'm going to show you because it really is like the tree of life. Like it has pretty much the whole tree of life on it. Um, I also, because I've come from a disability justice framework, I like sharing access needs is always an important part of any gathering. So I'll just say my access needs are currently met. And I hope that yours are too. If you have access needs that you want to make known, please feel welcome to share them in the chat or just unmute. And that could be something like slow down, or it could be how do I access the captions, or it could be can you describe that? Um, and I also just encourage you to take care of your own needs in your space. We all have bodies, and we gotta be in them. So my work is based in lifelong creative process, disability justice and counter-oppressive movement work, and dedication to decolonial practices, which I don't take lightly and don't think that I do perfectly. And part of that process is just being able to be in a process and work through it. And so one part of that is knowing that all land is holy land. And I'm here on Squaxin, Nisqually, Chehalis land on the Salish Sea. Hey, don't beep at me. On the Salish Sea, which is so-called Olympia, Washington. So I know it's much later for most of you. Um, and also, I'm very tired, so you all must be really tired. Um, I invite you to introduce yourselves in the chat. You can share your name, pronouns, first peoples of the land where you live, and then and dedications, who you're dedicating your learning to. And I'm dedicating this teaching to Palestinian people who are fighting for home and survival, and also to Mizrahi and Arab Jewish people, particularly Arab Jewish women and queer people who are doing important solidarity work and whose voices are often erased. Um, thank you, and I'm excited to, I'm just gonna pause for a moment and look at the chat and see. Yeah, I'm seeing some personal requests for access. Great. Thorn, yes, let's be in touch. I will send you the pictures. Um, thank you for introducing yourselves. So, how many of you have been counting the Omer these past 7 weeks? Lots of you. That's so great. So I have been so excited about all the many, many resources that there have been for counting the Omer this year. I remember uh, learning about the Omer counting process and not having many resources to learn how to do it. And it's just so abundant now. Um, the Omer Oracle collaboration with Taya came about a few years ago. First we collaborated because she teaches a sex and the sephirot class, and she asked me to do an image, and I actually don't have it to show you right now, but it's an image of like um, a vagina or like a female anatomy. I don't know, language fails me here. Um, so vulva and vagina and all of those parts with the sephirot mapped onto the body. Um, and so that was like our first collaboration around this. And then she was like, so I've created this whole map of the sephirot with like names for kind of each day of the counting the Omer process, and kind of a different distillation for each of the sephirot than what is um, kind of the popular definitions. And so I spent that year, that was 2 years ago, drawing a picture every night of the Omer to correspond with that day. And then last year I spent the whole counting the Omer process like doing more like design work. And then this year we offered it as a card a day emailed to people. So every day you would get like one of these images and a little meditation that went with it. Um, and I think maybe there's someone in the Zoom who is part of that. um, and so I want to share those with you and talk you through some of the way that we were thinking about the Omer. So first I'm going to share my drawing of the tree of life. So this is probably familiar to a lot of people. The Omer counting process starts below the veil at Chesed. And so these framings of the Sephirot, whereas I think often Chesed is called um, loving kindness or compassion, Taya framed it as heart expansion. And I'm going to show you some of the Chesed images. Let's see. Hmm. Well, that's not how I want it to be. I worked this all out ahead of time. Okay, I'll just click on them. So, chesed sheba chesed, heart expansion of heart expansion, is this big opening into infinity coming from the chest, from the heart. And the sound that I'm coupling with chesed is ah. And ah is just such expansive openness. Ah, it ripples out everywhere. There's no definition to it. It just vibrates through everything. Um, the second week of the Omer, we're we're with Givura, which some people it's like what is it? Boundaries, definition. Um, the words that Taya puts with it are strongholding. I think instead of trying to remember what all the other definitions all are, I'll just share what I'm working with. So strongholding, which in the system that I am working with, um, is becomes like almost like cells or atoms in the way that they create a structure. So it's like lots of little pieces that hold the big piece. And like it makes me think about the way that the cells in my body become me. Like my body seems like something solid, but it's made up of all these little tiny pieces that are working together. And so in that way, it makes boundaries feel not just like something that we have to harden ourselves into, but more just like something that we're able to flex with and breathe with and create organization. And the sound that goes with Gevura is a, like E-I-A. And when Victoria Hanna talks about the vowel sound of A, she's like, okay, you know, the Hebrew vowel is like these two dots, these two polarities, which also makes me think of like these little dots that are creating the structure, right? And that it's like kind of like flattened out into this contained kind of space. Hey. Then we move into Tiferet, which is sublime healing. And I just want to say, like, as we move down, some of these might seem really different than the definitions that you're used to. And I'm going to welcome questions about that as well. Um, and I really feel the sublime healing as just like the inevitability of healing when we're in our center and when things that are kind of getting in the way are able to be melted away. It's like Tiferet becomes the balance that allows everything to flow and cycle through. It's like a healthy wetland system. And for Tiferet, the sound is O. Oh, which creates kind of a up and down connection, as well as this kind of cavern for that resonance to happen in. Netzach. So Netzach is this like strong energy. It's like the presence of all possibilities in one moment. And Taya assigned the meaning of collective liberation. And the way that she described it is that that Netzach is like the prophetic voice. It's like the outward moving vibration, and that the exalted version of that prophetic voice is collective liberation. It's not just one person sharing their truth, it's when all of us are able to move together in a way that connects our visions and moves us towards liberation. And so the the image that I assigned to that is like keys and locks. The sound for Netzach is an oo, which is like a thread from the gut that goes through and connects things. It's the oo of you. It's the oo of through. So it's ooh. Hod is gathering power. So whereas collective liberation, Netzach, is this like outward generative movement, Hod is like calling in, being with, moving into our own self knowledge, and the way that through that we are connected to moon and stars and seasons and time and pacing. And one example that Taya said about how she thinks of Netzach and Hod as different is like if you're hosting an event, that Netzach is like you post on Instagram and then you like send out an email and you make sure your newsletter is going out. And that Hod is like you light a candle and you meditate on really who you are calling in to be in that space and you trust that they'll be there. The image that I have with Hod is the moon, many different um, versions of the moon that you'll see in these images. And the sound is E. And in Hebrew, you know, the E is the little dot. And it's like everything going in into this little tiny space. And one thing that Victoria Hanna shared when she was describing E, whereas Ah is like this infinite outward movement, the chesed, infinite outward. Um, Not that it's like pushing outward, it just vibrates all into infinity. The Hod, the E, goes inward. And I'm the one who connected him with the sephirot. I don't know if she would agree with me about these, but when she was describing the E sound, she said, if you take a line and you divide that line in half, and then you divide that line in half, and then you divide that line in half, and just keep going, like you can go to infinity, smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's that kind of infinity. And the E is also, it vibrates right here. And so when we do it, and we'll do this more, I'm just sharing the sounds right now, but when we do it, you can feel this vibration. I call it singing into your unicorn horn. So it's Anyone feel that? A little bit, maybe? We'll play with it more. Yesod is aligned activation. Yesod is like the bottleneck, it's the funnel point where all of these energies come through into the physical world. And the visual that I chose to go with that is like a veil being pulled back, curtains opening. Um, it's also, it can be like, this is so like having a screen that connects all of our different realities, which are actually like so separate. We're in all these different places. We're not in physical reality with each other, but this interface allows us to come into contact with each other. And that is a very Yesod thing. It allows for movement and activation in Malchut that would not be able to happen without some intermediary, either technology or lens or whether it's art or science or dreams or the computer screen or a stage. And so the image that I have with that, it's like, yeah, the curtains being parted. And the sound that I've assigned to Yesod is Oi, which is a combination of the O, which is that like big centered up and down inevitability of healing, like cavernous kind of thing. And then the E, which is the teeny tiny going into infinity. It's also, of course, a very Jewish sound. So it's like oi 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 oi. And I like it that it's a combination of sounds. So that to me that feels like that kind of like interaction between different realities that Yesod is all about to me. And then we have Malchut. Malchut being this earth, our bodies, Shekhinah, rooting deep, the indwelling presence of God in this physical world. It's the world where there are laws of nature, such as gravity, that we know so well and we trust so much that most of the time we don't think about or notice them. But if something seems like it's outside of what we expect of the laws of nature, it really stands out. So even if you believe, oh no, there are ways to go against gravity, it's like that belief stands out only because we know gravity is such a foundation of our reality. And the miracle of there being a physical center to this world is um, just amazing to me, that we don't fly off into space, that we're going to keep sitting here. If I put something on the floor, it's going to stay there unless somebody moves it. And yeah, Malchut is the world where we get to impact each other, where we get to take action, where we get to watch things grow, where we can really notice the the cycles of life and chart them and participate in them with each other. So obviously the visual metaphor is the roots, and the sound associated with Malchut is silence, because every vibration is already present. We can just listen and be with it. So I'm going to show you more of these images because it changes every week. All of what I just showed you was the first week, so it was all framed within the visual metaphor of the heart shape. And now we're in the week of Gevurah, where the visual metaphor is these little particles that create a structure. So here we have all these different hearts that are connected in all different ways, and there's a structure, but it's also really flowy and it's not predictable. And then for Gevurah Shebegevurah, it's fierce. It's like structure of structure, strong holding of strong holding. This is a system that knows how to hold itself. For Tiferet Shebegevurah, it's the sublime healing of strong holding. It's all things flowing, never ending, wellness squared. For Netzach Shebegevurah, collective liberation of strong holding. These are the ways that we all have a role to play in our collective liberation. We are all these little pieces that are holding some piece of the answer, some piece of the change that's needed, some piece of the solution. We got this. And then we have anchor. Hod Shebegevurah, gathering power of strong holding. And this feels like if you were to take a time lapse picture of the moon and the stars, it's like this fractal or kaleidoscope of time, and anchoring ourselves in our understanding of how the little things create a flow together that we can trust. And then we have Yesod Shebegevurah, everything, aligned activation of strong holding. It's the ability to pull back the veil and understand or have glimpses of the bigger structure that holds everything. And the world is well. These are all the nutrients in the earth that are nourishing the trees, communicating with each other to bring wellness, growth. And then we're into Tiferet. And so for Tiferet, I was looking at patterns that have an inherent sense of yeah, of healing and uh kind of, I was looking for like portals and vortexes and um things that you could kind of like fall into. And so the rose is the heart expansion of sublime healing, the ecstatic ease. For Gevura Shabbat Teferet, we have strong holding of sublime healing. Welcome home. It's the DNA. It's what makes us up. All these little tiny important pieces of information that spiral together. For Tiferet Shabbat Tiferet, sublime healing of sublime healing, paradise now. This is like the eye of a cat with the experience of witnessing consciousness in another being. This is like the cosmos seeing itself. Netzach Shabbatiferet, collective liberation of sublime healing, tending wounds with fullest love, the specificity of our fingerprints and the way that we touch each other to unlock possibilities, healing, pleasure. Hod Shabbatiferet, gathering power of sublime healing, priestess. This is being in our flow with the moon and knowing, yeah, knowing the healing that comes from aligning ourselves with with the moon and with its patterns. Yesod Shabbatiferet, aligned activation of sublime healing. It is all possible. This I'm a life I've been a performer since I was a kid, and the feeling, I don't know how many of you have had the experience of like stepping onto a stage in this way, but there's when I think about that interface between realities, where it's like something that's been only in my reality is now having the opportunity to be transferred into other people's reality. This, like being able to step onto a stage and share something that I've been working on, and then it gets instantly transferred into everybody else's consciousness, is such a magical thing. And this image always reminds me of the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the song that's like, don't dream it, be it. Don't dream it, be it. And then we have a pine cone for Malchut Shabbatiferet, rooting deep of sublime healing. All is well. And the way that a giant tree can create this beautiful little fractal of a pine cone that holds all the genetic information for it to carry itself on. And then we're into the week of Netzach. Heart expansion of collective liberation. Wow, when somebody just has the key and just opens the cage and like, okay, we're free. And this is the energy of Netzach. It's like it wants to just open the cage. Like, I don't want to have to like think about all the ways to do it and who do you have to talk to and what, writings do we have to put out about it in order to convince people. It's just open the cage. And that's what the heart wants, is just the things that we know are just and that are going to lead to liberation. We want to be able to just and then Gevura Shebenetzach, strong holding of collective liberation, showing up. We have all of those keys. We have them. We just have to show up with them when the time is right. Tiferet Shebenetzach, sublime healing of collective liberation, sweet reparations. All of those resources that have been hoarded can flow towards the places that they're needed most. Netzach Shebenetzach, collective liberation of collective liberation. This is, the gates are open. I feel like the ones that are like Netzach Shebenetzach or Tiferet Tiferet, there's like something intangible in them that is like amplified, amplified, amplified. Um, I just think of this card as like the time is now. The time is now. Hod Shebenetzach, gathering power of collective liberation. This is the tipping point. And this is, the earth and the moon are locked in this dance together. They're always facing each other. And it's like this love that just like pulls them together, and there's so many things that depend on that. And it just, I don't know, it actually, I don't have a lot of language for it, but this evokes so much that it's like it's global, it's happening, that tipping point is coming, and it's just part of the rotation of the earth. And then here we are, Yesod Shebenetzach, that interface, aligned activation of a collective liberation, amplify. I don't know if this image would have ever existed if it weren't for the quarantine, but I sure know what it means. Malchut Shebenetzach, rooting deep of collective liberation. Yes, this is deserving home. And then we're into the moon to Hod, trusting that conversation with the moon, gathering power. Gevura Shebahod, strong holding of gathering power. Commit, the calendar. Tiferet Shebahod, sublime healing of gathering power. This is like the way that mirroring beauty to each other, or having our beauty mirrored back to us, can show us such depth. And it's like, yeah, the shimmer on the outside is just, it's like a clue or um, yeah, it just evokes something that can be so deep. I have very strong spiritual um, connection with beauty. It's really important to me. Netzach Shebahod, collective liberation of gathering power from the inside out. And then Hod Shebahod, Lad Omer, the castle walls. This is like miracles, and that bright light of the Zohar. Yesod Shebahod, aligned activation of gathering power, portal between worlds. This is like a portal that almost all of us have moved through in order to be here. And then Malchut Shebahod, rooting deep of gathering power, mycelial network. And this is like the Big Dipper pouring stars down into the earth, into the mycelium. Or it could be scooping the mycelium up out of the earth to bring them to the stars. And then we're in Yesod. Heart expansion of aligned activation, cascade. This one makes me think about just the ways that art can move us and help us feel things that we might not have access to just in our own selves, but when we see it somewhere else, it can like bring up feelings that are ours to feel. And then we have the science piece, optimize, strong holding of aligned activation, being able to see like, wow, look at all these cells that are creating this structure, this form, and having the tools to be able to do that. Tiferet Sheba Yesod, sublime healing of aligned activation, right pace is prayer. Look how perfectly paced this beautiful turtle is as it gazes at its own reflection. Netzach Sheba Yesod, collective liberation of aligned activation, catalyze. This image is a really famous image of a monk who was self-immolating. This image was broadcast on TV in a time when people hadn't seen images like that before, and it really woke a lot of people up about the horrors of the Vietnam War and how strong, like that, this person felt strongly enough about it that this is the action that they took. Um, and I think it's important to remember that any movement for freedom, there are people that laid down their lives for for it to happen, and um, not to say that's something we all need to do, but it's an important part of the reality of our world to hold. Hod Shabbat Yesod, gathering power of aligned activation. Fortify, allowing our dreams to become part of what fortifies our reality here and gives foundation to our movements in the world. Yesod Shabbat Yesod is rocket launch, is the Big Bang. This is a picture of the Big Bang. It's like when things are so aligned that something enormous happens. Malchut Shabbat Yesod, rooting deep of aligned activation, crowning. The earth has such incredible treasures. And then this is this past week of Malchut. So you can imagine if you were receiving these one a day, or if you had this next year, there'll be a deck. So you get to really just like spend a whole day present with that energy, with that image, with that short little description. But because we're at the brink of revelation, I'm showing all of them to you at once, and then we're going to do some sounding. So toroidal field is like the gravitational pull of the heart of our bodies. Strong holding of rooting deep, steady ground. There's something, this made me think of the saying, man plans and God laughs. So just like that interaction, I'm like, the earth has our own plans. So the interaction between our plans and our structures, and then what the earth chooses to do. Exquisite attention. Acknowledge the ancient ones. Know where you came from. These are the Rosh Chodesh fires. This is why you are here. This is about pleasure in work and play, letting work and play be the same thing, like a bee that is just rolling around in the pollen, having the most amazing time. I really felt this one. This was just 2 days ago. And then we come to Malchut, Shabbat Malchut, rooting deep, core of the earth. This is just feeling our connection to that core of the earth, experiencing what we experience. In some ways, there's nothing that needs to be said about this because it just is what we're doing every single day. But it's the thing that we're doing every single day that we're often not even paying attention to. Is being present, being in our bodies, being with the earth. So I want to take us through this sound journey. And so I made a little map. I think I have to stop my share and start it again. One moment. Well, I'll just share my whole screen and see how that works. Okay. You can see that? So we have chesed, the infinite movement, vibration through space. And then we have gevura, the creating structure. And then the tiferet. That place of integration and alignment. And then we have netzach, the ooh. 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 Then hod, the e. And then Yesod, the oi. Oi, 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 oi. Oi, 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 oi. And then Malchut, silence. And now I'm going to sing us through every day of the Omer with each combination of sounds. And you're welcome to sing with or just to experience it as a sound bath. Ooh. revelation might be something that comes very quietly, or it might be just the most obvious thing that you already knew and maybe just didn't feel brave enough or clear enough to articulate. Um, it can come through meditation, it can come through conversation, it can come from an Instagram post, it can come from a dream. Having gone through this 49-day deep dive through all these different energies that help us clear a channel to receive, to notice the subtleties, we are now on the brink of revelation. And I want to ask for everyone to write a word or a phrase into the chat, but don't press send yet. Whatever your revelation that you are receiving and or offering in this moment, no matter how, whatever judgments you might have about it, I encourage you to share that revelation. So I'm going to say revelation in the chat right here. And then I'm going to give everyone 30 seconds to write your revelation. Okay. I'm going to count to 3 and then I'm going to have everyone press send. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to read it out loud. Strength, let it be. Cradle of tender love, sacred interconnection of all beings. Seek wisdom and nourish spirit. Presence, gift of voice. Soften to receive sublime poetry. Love of life, love of mankind. The veils fully dropping from my relationship to Israel-Palestine. I can heal. Expression is strength, truth becoming. Carving the vessel wide open. Truth telling, courage, slow wail. Step out of fear into the joyous unknown. Abundance and manifestation grounded deeply with intuition and trust despite of uncertainty. We are not alone. Alignment. Thank you for these very deep prophecies. I don't take it lightly. I will hold these prophecies with me. I'm going to copy them so that I have them with me. And that's my time. Thank you so much.